God is good.
All the time.
And all the time.
God is good.
So that's the refrain that opens youth group on Sunday nights here. And sometimes after that last line, I want to interject. Really? Because if God is good all the time and all the time God is good, then we've got a problem. We've got a problem that has three unsatisfactory solutions. The problem comes when we say that God is good, but we see all of the needless suffering that happens around us. I'm talking here about the random cancer diagnosis, the child who dies in the automobile accident, the hurricane that destroys the already impoverished country, the person born with terrible physical or mental disabilities. If God is good, then why must we endure all of these terrible, unforeseen, random acts of suffering? The first unsatisfactory solution is that God is good, but God's just not powerful enough to do anything to stop these forms of evil taking place. God's good, but God is not sovereign. Well, that leads to some anxiety. It might just cause us to give up on God entirely. If God isn't sovereign, then that means that chaos or evil is a power equal to or greater than God. We don't want to say that, certainly. So if that's the case, then perhaps we ought to just stop saying this youth group refrain entirely, because the second unsatisfactory solution is that God isn't good. God's like those Greco-Roman gods, fickle and needing to be appeased, a God whose wrath and anger just sort of overflow randomly into the world. So there's two of three unsatisfactory solutions. One, God is good, but God's not powerful enough to make everything good in the world. Or two, God's powerful enough, but not good, and so God just chooses to let people suffer or causes them to suffer. The third unsatisfying answer is that God's goodness is beyond our human understanding. And so God allows or causes suffering in the world for some greater purpose we just can't see right now. God has a plan, we say. In that world, though, God's sovereignty requires God to inflict terrible suffering on others in order to serve some ultimate goodness of God. What kind of God is that? When pain or sorrow is too much to bear, when your heart feels numb, unable to care, when faith seems so pointless that you cannot pray, when no one knows quite what to say. These questions and their unsatisfactory answers are mostly reflections on attributes or characteristics of God that theologians have surmised by trying to make cohesive statements about God out of the whole witness of the Bible. God is spirit, infinite, eternal, unchangeable in his being, wisdom, power, holiness, justice, goodness, and truth, the Westminster Shorter Catechism says. Our ponderings on why God allows evil comes from these theological categories we assign to God. But here's the deal. Listen to me for a second. The Bible never tells us how evil came into the world or why evil things happen. The Bible just assumes evil exists. Forces opposed to the love and generosity of God and the harmony of the creation. And the Bible seeks then in story and history, in prophecy and poetry and parable, to give us a way to stay faithful to a good God in the presence of evil around us. That's the example we have in the story today of Jesus' temptation in the wilderness. That story in Luke doesn't try to tell us where the devil comes from or why the devil's allowed to torment Jesus. The story just assumes the presence of evil around us. There is a power opposed to the will of God. But Jesus is an example of how to live in an alternative way than a way that gives in to the evil and the chaos. To live in a way that affirms that God is working for good at all times, and at all times, God is working for the good. If God is silent when you need to hear that you're not alone, that comfort is near, when you are abandoned, when you need a friend, when all good things come to an end. The devil first pursues Jesus' basest need, food. Jesus has been fasting in an effort to commune with God. He's famished. He's encouraged to turn stones into bread. Meet your own needs. Put yourself first. Abandon discipline. That's what evil does. Tempts us to put ourselves first. Meet our own needs. Make life about the pursuit of leisure and ease. But under his breath, Jesus says, God is good all the time. All the time, God is good. One does not live by bread alone. True goodness commits to more than physical satisfaction. Then the devil takes Jesus on this high mountain. All the kingdoms of the world belong to him, and he will gladly hand over their reign to Jesus. Wouldn't it be good to be able to end wars, to negotiate trade deals, to lift up the poor in the new political system? That's good, right? Just bow to the devil, and that power can be yours. And again, through gritted teeth, God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. Worship the Lord your God and serve only him. Pragmatic and political success is not the good God intends. Cooperation, freedom to share, human agency in the healing of the world, that's the greater goodness of God, not a Jesus dictatorship. Politics and power cannot ultimately save. Okay, Mr. Religious, to the top of the temple. Do something dramatic that proves God to the world. Wouldn't it be good to have everyone know the power of God and turn to love and serve this God? Put on a show and make it so. One more time. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. Do not put the Lord your God to the test. God doesn't want our love because God meets our expectations of miraculous spectacle. God's goodness infuses itself into ordinary acts of human life and invites our participation, these routines of kindness and faithfulness. And when it looks like there's no end in sight, know all that is wrong can still be made right. You're never alone. God has promised to be with us even when we can't see. The church, then, following Jesus' example, does not resort to platitudes to try and make evil digestible. God has a plan. Everything happens for a reason. God just needed another angel. She's in a better place. That's not us. Don't let that be us. Don't turn our youth group refrain from an act of bold faith to a platitudinous truism that just tries to get us to hide from the evil around us. Christian faith does not make evil digestible. Christian faith confronts evil, confounds evil's schemes, and creates a new vision of goodness that is a God who cannot be overcome by suffering in the world. Our life as the church is to be a faithful witness that refuses to let evil have the last word, that refuses to let people sit all alone in their suffering. You've heard it today from Myra. Tragic, unexpected medical disaster that could have ruined a life. Evil takes the day, chaos is all there is. Obviously, there's no good God working. But no. Ramps were built, meals shared, a mortgage paid off. Evil doesn't get the last word. We don't let go of each other no matter what disaster comes. And we, by our lives and our generosity, make the goodness to shine forth even in the darkest of situations. You've seen that in your own life. I have too. Our life in the church is a testament to an alternative way of God, which is why every year we ask you to take this time to make a significant commitment to the church's life and ministry. The temptations are around us all the time, just like they were in Jesus' life when he was in the wilderness. Use your money, use your time for your leisure. Work to gain political and economic advantage. Make political winning your God. Promise material blessings from the pulpit, or perform signs of God's dramatic power in order to coerce people into faith. I'm aware that every year I stand in this pulpit and I ask you to consider prayerfully what you're going to dedicate to God in the coming year. We ask you to commit a portion of your income, the measure of your time and your labor, to support this ethereal life of faith and practice. And I talk about how our giving is actually a way we affirm the goodness of God to live differently than the temptations around us. I'm very aware every Sunday I stand on the top of these steps, I hold up these offering plates as we sing our doxology, and I'm also aware in this cynical age that y'all never see me put a check in that plate. And so I wonder, in the time we live, if there's ever a question, does this fella ever even try to practice what he's preaching? And the truth is, I fail at it. I'm a hypocrite like all of you. But we do pledge. For us, that pledge is $10,500 a year to the life of the church. Now, we don't give a lot of money to other charities. We buy some band fruit or, give at the end of the year to a cause, maybe. We're fortunate that we've had families who could help in financial aid scholarships in college, so we never had to have any student debt. Our parents were able to help us with some of those big first purchases you need in adulthood. So for us, our pledge to the church is our fourth largest expense after childcare and our mortgage and food every year. We do that because we are committed. We believe in the mission of the Church of Jesus Christ. Believe in this deep goodness of God that helps us to cope with the evil that is around us. And so I want you to know that I'm not asking y'all to consider doing anything that I'm not trying to do too. Because I really believe, and I know you do too, that the goodness of God cannot be thwarted by any evil or chaos that is around us, not even death. And it's that belief that motivates a way that takes our entire life, our time, our behaviors, and also our money. Because God's not the author of chaos or tragedy. God is working in every situation to create moments of reconciliation and redemption. And many times that goodness of God that ultimately overcomes the evil is done by people like y'all sitting in these pews, this collection of saints who hold one another and care for each other and take someone else's hand at the moment of deepest despair and says, so hold on to find a way to get through. And when all hope is gone and you can't hold on, then we will hold on to you.